Hey, welcome back to Sweet Hot Rods and Honey and Daryl. And today we're going to be, actually, for several days, we're going to be working on a couple things specific to getting the engine up and running. But first, let me catch you up on what's going on in the garage because I've been busy. It's been, I don't know, a couple weeks since I've made a video, and I just wanted to give you a heads up on what's going on. So one of the biggest things that I've made changes to this truck, a couple things. Well, we got an LS engine in it, and we've got to deal with that. But we're putting air conditioning in, and I got things roughed in here, and we're looking good, but there's still a lot to be done. It's going to take a while. It's been about 3 or 4 minutes, and it's about 15% complete, but it's coming along. The evaporator underneath the dash has been installed, and we've got lines plumbed from the inside out to the engine. And let me get a light in here and show you. It's very tight in here under the dash. I still have to put in the lines for the air conditioning coming out to the, to the bottom of the dashboard. The heater vent's going to be coming out the bottom, and I've got the defrost lines plumbed. Have not got the electrical hooked up yet. And that's another story that I'll talk about in a few minutes. But we have that, and one accomplishment is that along with that tight fit, we have this air scoop vent working. So we can, it works wonderful. The problem I had was, well, space, of course, but the handle here, we had to make room at the, I'm sorry about this light. We had to make room at the windshield washer motor, which is over here, and its linkage. So that was one thing. Just space in general is tight. I'm going to have a problem getting this driver's side hose hooked up. I can't get this thing out of the way, and it is back behind all this stuff. So that's going to be a tough fit. So that's kind of, sort of done. The mechanical portion is finished. The electrical and charging the system and calibrating the system, that's going to be coming up in another video, I think. We're not going to be getting to that point yet. We've got plenty of other wiring to do, as you can see. And what I decided was, we got our battery mounted. We have our lines run, and they're running underneath the frame. Let me get out here and show you. I have them running down the frame rail. I've got a ground on this side, which is the passenger side, and then I have the positive 12 volt line running up to the engine, and that is hooked in down there. Got all the stream relief clamps on, and so that's just one small part of the electrical system we've got finished. Coming out here to the engine bay, you can see I have the lines made for the air conditioning. Those two guys going into the evaporator, and these are the heater hoses. They come down to the water pump. The AC compressor is down there, and I had to buy adapters in order to hook on these nuts from the hoses. We have our dryer. Let me come around this side, it's easier to see. We have our dryer plumbed in, and that line is the small line down on the very bottom. That line goes out, and there's a service port for the AC. The other service port is down here on the other side. So high and low pressure side have service ports. We put in our condenser and has everything plumbed. That's looking fine. We mounted our fan. Electrical is not hooked up yet, but it's there. And the electrical to the trinary switch is not hooked up yet. So when I do all the electrical, it's kind of all ties together, and so that has been a challenge recently. So getting back to the air conditioning lines, I bought this tool to do crimps, and it works really well. So we've got bits for 6 AN all the way up to, I think these are 12. Yep. So I made all my own lines. You can buy this. I think it was right around, I don't know, 130, 140 bucks by the time shipping. And but you can take your AC lines to I don't know, radiator shop or somebody that works on air conditioners and have them crimp your hoses for a cost. But I wanted to get the tool because I'm going to be working on, well, I made these fittings, and then also I'm going to be putting air conditioning into my 55 Chevy. So I figured I'm going to just buy the tool. So it's pretty handy. So getting back over here to the electrical, I decided to put in a fuse box in the back of the cab, and that fuse box is going to handle basically everything except the engine and engine sensors. They're going to be on a separate fuse box and separate line. So We've got headlights, taillights, brake lights, power to the, I think I'm going to use the power to the fuel pump, and let's see, accessories. I've got a couple USB ports I'm going to put in underneath the dash. Power to the air conditioner, and but the air conditioner is also going to be tied into the ECU of the engine, the LS engine. So that's kind of the tricky part. We got our gas pedal in, and its wiring is connected. What I had to do, because I'm mounting this fuse box in the back of the cab, and the reason I'm doing that is because I'm running out of space underneath the dash. There's enough room there right now, but I intend to put the fuse box and the ECU underneath the dash, kind of behind where the gauges go. So there's a spot on the firewall back there. So I didn't want to clutter anything below the dash with any, other boxes. So that was the reason I put this fuse box in back here. And because I did that, there's a steering column connector, GM, that comes up to the steering column for turn signals and hazard lights. Well, that cable was not long enough, so I had to splice in using these heat shrink solder bits, called solder seal connectors. And what you do is, strip the wires on both parts that you're connecting, and heat it up with a heat gun. And so these are heat shrink ends, and then this center section is a solder bit. So you got to hold it all still and get a heat gun on there, and it will melt that solder and solder your wires together. So those are really nice, and I've gone through quite a few of these. I don't know what size they're called, but I was using that on like two 14 gauge wires, and this little kit has some larger and some skinnier ones. So I may be using these skinny ones on the engine harness if I need to splice or take out some lengths of that cable. So what I did from this fuse box, I'm running my headlight wires, put a hole through back here. Seat's going to cover this up. Seat's going to cover up that battery box, and so it's going to fold down so I can access it, but it'll be hidden away when the seat's properly up. So I ran lines for the front of the truck, and then I ran lines to the back for tail lights, and those wires are just roughed in. And you can see underneath the truck where they're coming out. This for the back and the front. So I have to get some protective, something to protect that wire going up through the box channel up to the front of the truck, and just so we don't have a short anywhere. We got I wired in a frame to the cab ground, and then I'm going to be doing the same, putting in another strap And I ordered that. Another strap from the engine to the frame. So everything will have a common ground. Now, talking about the ECU, I have a wire harness laid out here, and this generally has been giving me a headache because I don't want to just slap it in, any old way. I want to keep it as tidy as possible. In fact, I don't want any wires up on this upper part of the firewall. In fact, I'm not gonna even. This is power coming from the starter battery to the starter into the cab. That is not going to be going through that port. What I think I really want to do is I want to put, this is the stock fuse box for the that came out of a Cadillac Escalade, and it will connect to this one port, but I need to also add a second. I think so that'll handle everything that the engine needs. That gets connected here. I think there's one wire that I'm going to need for the ignition to energize the ECU. And I have the ECU inside the house at my desk. But anyway, what I want to do, I originally wanted to do was eliminate this stock fuse box and put in a smaller fuse box. But because this should be doing everything that it needs to do, I decided, well, I'm just going to use this fuse box and keep it simple so that I don't have to tear apart this connector and modify and solder in all kind of wires to another fuse box and all that. So that guy should do everything that I need to do. But the idea is to keep the engine bay clean. I did not want to put the ECU or this fuse box up into the engine bay. I wanted to, put it underneath the dash if possible. Now the challenge is, and I know I'm going to have to splice and cut some wires and shorten wires, and maybe even lengthen some of these wires. Just because it's going to have a slightly different layout. The way the stock wire harness was laid out, and it had a stock intake manifold, but the stock wiring harness came across the top of the engine and distributed, the wires for the fuel injectors. So it started here, but I really want to have that main bundle in the back of the engine so it's a little bit more hidden. So everything started here originally, and then it spread out. So everything should reach kind of close because we're not changing sensor positions, and we are going to use the 4L65E transmission, and it has a couple connectors on it for controlling shift points, and then also gear position indicator or sensor. So that'll know when we're in park, drive, reverse, neutral, and that tells the ECU those situations. This goes to controlling the shifts, when to shift gears. All right, I'm really jumping around here, and I've been jumping around on different things of the truck because I just want to keep moving. I'm kind of mentally stuck on the wire harness until I made some decisions today. We're going to go with this original bundle. And I think, ECU, fuse box, OBD, and well, this was initially the stock gauge cluster, and this was instrument cluster. What was this? This is the drive-by-wire gas pedal. So all of that is going to stay inside the cab, and at some point along this bundle is where it's going to be, going into the firewall. I don't know where exactly, but we have the control lines for the left and right side of the engines, fuel injectors. The passenger side, they're laid out fine. 8 is in the back, 2 is in the front. On the driver's side, it's a different story because this bundle was in the front of the engine, and it kind of, distributed everything from front to back. So these fuel injection connectors are backwards as far as, this I think is, this was 7, 5, 3, 1. So what I have to do is swap position of, 7 to 1, 1 to 7, 3 to 5, and 5 to 3. So I've got to splice, or actually swap wires at some point to make this 1, 3, 5, 7, front to back. That's going to be modified. And so that's that. Everything else, well, we'll find out what we've got to shorten or lengthen. But the problem is I didn't want to cut another huge hole in the firewall. There is an existing port that was used for wiring on the stock truck, and it, so it's about 1 3/4 inch diameter. I believe all of those connectors are smaller than 1 3/4 inch, but I need to feed everything up until the point of where we're going to mate with the firewall, ECU, fuse box, firewall right there. So I've got to fish those wires and connectors through that hole. It's going to be tight, and I may be having to open up this hole a bit bigger in order to get all the connectors through along with the wire. And then so I'll feed everything out from that hole down to hide away as much wire as possible. I've got to come across here for the injector controls, right? And some other sensors. So that's kind of where we're at. And I have to take this back off. I put this inner fender on here on the driver's side because I thought, well, if I can't put the fuse box and the ECU inside the cab, I may have to mount it, on the outside here. I really don't want to do that because a couple things. One is any weather that, if the truck drives in rain or any weather, it's susceptible to, getting contact with electronics, and I don't really like to do that. Even though modern cars do have all that stuff up in the engine compartment, but it's a little bit tighter there and more sealed. So I guess if worse comes to worse, I can mount those on the inside of the driver's side inner fender. So I just put that on just to see how much room I really have, and also to see how my brake line fits there, and it just clears. So I'm gonna try to start fishing wires through that hole, and if they don't fit, they're gonna have to come back out, and I'm gonna have to open that hole a little bit bigger. I should be able to find, well, I'm gonna have to make maybe I should just make a square or a rectangular opening, and then put a panel back on there, some kind of decorative panel with a hole that will accommodate that wire harness, thickness. It's probably, I didn't measure it, it's at least an inch. It's probably somewhere between an inch and a quarter, inch and a half. So I should be able to find a grommet that'll work with a rectangular type of panel. And then I'm just gonna close up this hole. I don't think I'm gonna need that for anything. I really don't want to use that. I just want to kind of keep the firewall clean. So that's what's going on. I'm really happy about this vent. I had difficulty trying to figure out, and I had to look at a couple of videos. This gasket that I had goes on that way, and it does seal. So this lip will seal pretty well to the top side. So that's really cool. I really didn't want to permanently close that off. It's just nice to have that feature. But it was a challenge because of the windshield wiper motor and the air conditioner evaporator. So that was that. The other thing, as a side note, I decided I was going to paint those wheels white, or the white wheels. It was Wimbledon white, and it just didn't look quite right. I think this black, and this wheel is going to get an outer trim ring, but I think these wheels look pretty good. It kind of goes with the theme of the dark paint, the black fenders, and the black cherry body color. So I think that's really pretty cool. I like that. And with the Moonies on there, I think it looks really, really good. Yeah, I've been putting mags on everything that I build, and this time I just wanted to try something a little bit different. So that's what we're going to go with here. I've got to do a little bit of touch up, a few spots right around the edge. When I painted, I didn't get that sealed well enough, so I just have to touch up some of that white. And here's the wires for lights coming up to the front of the truck. So wiring has been interesting. It's probably, well, I'm an electrical engineer or electronics engineer, retired, and it's important to get everything exactly right as well as look good. And that's what I'm trying to achieve. I think it's gonna work, but it's been giving me a headache. So anyway, but that's all part of the fun of hot rodding. Custom builds require custom thoughts and custom designs. So, all right, so let me start fishing that that thick harness through that hole and see how it goes. All right, let's see how this goes. I'm not getting my hopes up, but it's worth a try. What a rat's nest. Try to get the sensors with the longest wires in through first. And I think some of these bigger connectors are towards that area. So let's see. Oh boy. The very first one is the transmission shift. That went through. Next are a few small ones. This is crazy. Should have taken some of this wire loom off first, because it's getting in the way. Let me bring you back here so you can see the disaster area. All right, let's see if we can get this done. I got one connector through, about 10,000 more to go. I'm going to get this other large connector through. If I can. This is going to be the challenging one. I don't want to break any wires or slice anything, but it's quite tight. Flatten these out. Okay, another large connector through. Now, let me work on this. This is not great video for viewing pleasure, so I'm going to try to get these things through. And if I can't, we'll be cutting another hole in here. I'm more than halfway through this bundle. I've got a few more kind of, well, the majority of these connectors are small, and I think they'll slip in. I'm going to try to get this larger fuel injector connector through there, but this is kind of what it looks like now. We still have a nice size hole. Got more than half of the connectors are out. The idea was to get the larger connectors out first, and the very first one was this transmission connector, which is about the largest diameter, and that just barely made it, so that one had to go first. So I'm going to continue and keep my fingers crossed that the rest of these are going to go through. I think they will. If not, I got to pull them all back out and cut out that hole bigger. Just a few more small connectors, and I think it might work. We've got a few for the fuel injectors. They should come right through. One. There's another. Bundle is kind of like a solid rod, and it's not pliable to kind of bend out of the way or, you know, separate the wires. But if I can get these injector connectors through without damaging them, we'll be okay. I should have taken off all the wire loom. I cleaned up some of this harness, but not completely clean. All right, here comes a few more injectors. Alright, we got that through, but the wire loom causing problems. Oh, we're getting there. Alright, let's see what we have left. Alright, we got 4 or 5 small ones, and that's it. Too tight. where these wires can be separated and flattened out. Let me finish getting this in, and I'll show you when I'm done. I'm in disbelief. I can't believe I got all of this spaghetti through that hole. I am so happy that I don't have to cut more. That I don't have to cut any more off the firewall. So we've got our ECU connectors, and here is the connector that's going to go to the fuse box. Now the question is, do I put the fuse box up underneath there? I could put it in this side, this kick panel area, but I don't know that the kick panel area is deep enough. It may not be. And then where do I put the ECU? They may have to both go up kind of on the bottom side of the dashboard, you know, the bottom part of the skin. Maybe mount something on top of the brake pedal bracket. I don't know if that's viable or not. But wow, I've been having nightmares about this harness and trying to figure out how to lay it out cleanly. And so we're sort of there. So I think what I'm going to do is wrap this bundle underneath the brake assist, the master brake cylinder, and then start to lay out the wires for the fuel injectors. Again, I'm going to have to do that swap. I'm going to have to rewire 4 of the injectors because the way the wiring was laid out, they are backwards. So, but the passenger side was fine. So I can just come around the back passenger side and they'll line up. And then start from there. And then we're gonna have to bring connector up here to the throttle position sensor, and then one for the alternator, the 2 that are feeding the coils, injectors and coils. Oh, they shouldn't be a problem. Crank position sensor, and temperature sensor, I think is right down here. So I'm going to take off this inner fender since I don't have to worry about mounting anything on it, and then I'll have more room. Now, the one thing I didn't do, I tried to, was I've got a broken stud in the exhaust manifold that I still have not been able to get out. And I tried to weld a nut onto it, and it just keeps breaking off. Anyway, I got to work on that. I got to get the steering column in, and so I have to get this thing out of the way. And then we'll see what the condition, lengths. If I've got to change anything on lengths of these cables to the sensors or not. I don't think I have to, but I'll find out. And then we're going to continue on wiring up the rest of the truck once I get the box on the back and the other inner fender in, and the fenders, and then the grill. Then I'll be able to wire up lights. I can wire up the fan and the trinary switch for the AC. See what else is there. There's plenty to do. Oh, and then I'm going to be putting in our Dakota Digital gauges. Wire up the control panel for the air conditioner evaporator, and they connect up to this. That shouldn't be a problem. What could be a little bit of a challenge is this valve for the heater. This connects into the vintage air system, and there's, I don't know, 3 or 4 pins on the bottom side, and it's they're individual wires that have got to discreetly connect
It's not like one plug that has them all lined up. So I got to figure that out. And well, that's plenty for now. I've got my hands full. And once I get the combination of the wiring for the the standard fuse box and then the engine fuse box, then I'll be able to sleep better. It's coming along. It's all part of building a custom vehicle.
Well, we have a change of plans. I decided instead of putting in the stock fuse box, which would be easy because I don't have to change any wiring there, or maybe just one or two add-ons, I'm going to put a smaller fuse box in, and it'll probably, I ordered a 6 relay, and I don't know how many fuses are on it, but there's a sufficient amount of fuses. And so what I'm doing now is marking this, if you can see it, marking the this connector. It's a grid layout of A through F, 1 through 12. So I'm marking where pinouts are, and on these schematics that I have, they have location of those coordinates. So what I'll do is get rid of this connector, and I'll have all the wires labeled that went to each one of those coordinate specifics, so I'll know what they were for. The majority on this connector are meant for fused when the key's on, but it varies. So anyway, that's what we're doing, and I'm going to post a little picture of the fuse box that I did buy. All right, so we got everything removed from this plug connector, labeled and ready to connect to the pigtails on the fuse block that I'm going to be receiving from Amazon. So we can do away with this plug and this big fuse block that we don't need all of its capabilities. So we're going to trim down size-wise, and we'll be able to easily fit the ECU PCM underneath behind the gauges, and then the fuse block in there somewhere. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot cleaner. I think I'm gonna wrap up this video for now. This is gonna be part 1 of the electrical connections and the fuse boxes that I'm using. So I'll have another video coming out with some of the more details of wiring up the truck. But I just want to give you an overview of basically what's going on, the challenges, and where I'm configuring parts and trying to fit them all into this truck with limited space. So I want to thank you for joining me, and if you like, if you haven't subscribed already, please hit the subscribe button and like button if you enjoy it. And I hope you got something out of this. I enjoy sharing my trials and tribulations with you guys. So thanks a lot, and we'll see you on the next one.